A senior Yemeni official has condemned the U.S.-British airstrikes on the country as a blatant aggression against an independent state. Ansarullah spokesman Mohammed Abdul Salam said the U.S. President Donald Trump's claims about Yemen's threat to international navigation in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait are false and misleading. He said the country's naval operations in support of Gaza are limited to Israeli ships until humanitarian aid is delivered to the people of Gaza. Abdul Salam noted that Yemen's decision came after a 4-day period of grace was given to ceasefire mediators. He affirmed that international navigation in the Red Sea faces no threat from Yemen. Abdul Salam added that the U.S. airstrikes represent a return to the militarization of the Red Sea, which is the real threat to international navigation in the region. Earlier, Mohammed al-Bakhaiti, a member of Ansarullah's political council, had warned that Yemen will respond to Washington's unjustified escalation with escalation. Meanwhile, condemnations are pouring in after Yemen was targeted by the U.S.-British airstrikes. Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad were amongst the first to slam the Western aggression against the country. Hamas condemned in the strongest terms the criminal U.S.-British airstrikes as a stark violation of international law and an assault on the country's sovereignty and stability. The movement expressed its full solidarity with Yemen and its brotherly people and appreciated steps they have taken in support of Gazans. The Islamic Jihad movement also condemned the attacks, describing them as a brazen act of support for the Zionist entity and its crimes against the Palestinian people. He said the aggression is aimed at protecting the Israeli regime and targeting all those who stand with the Palestinian people. Separately, the Palestinian Mujahideen movement strongly condemned the aggression against Yemen while reaffirming its permanent support for and solidarity with the Yemeni people. And for this special coverage, we have with us Mr. Rick Sterling, investigative journalist from Berkeley, US, and also Mr. Jim Kavanagh, political analyst and blogger from New York. Gentlemen, welcome to Press TV. Mr. Sterling, beginning with you, sir, your thoughts on the US-British attack on Yemen when the Yemeni people have not yet carried out any operations since the Gaza ceasefire was in place. And we know the reasons for the Yemeni operations on Israeli-bound ships: lift the siege on Gaza and allow humanitarian aid into the besieged strip. Mr. Sterling, are you with us? It seems that we don't have Mr. Sterling yet. So, Mr. Kavanagh, I can see you on the screen. Mr. Kavanagh, the question to you: your thoughts on the British attack on Yemen, the U.S.-British attack on Yemen, and when the Yemeni people have not even carried out the operation yet.
Well, thank you for having me. Secondly, this demonstrates the United States and Britain's absolute commitment to the Zionist project and to the Holocaust, to protecting Israel's Holocaust in Gaza, and they're going to jump ahead and proactively attack Sana'a and Yemen, because the Yemenis are the most honorable country in the world today, who are the only country that has and is willing to, and has already, and has said it will continue to stand up militarily and provide a military challenge to this Holocaust that's going on in Gaza. And as I think your previous correspondent says, the Yemenis are acting according to their responsibility in international law. It's the responsibility of all nations to do what they can to stop a Holocaust and a genocide in progress. And that's what the Yemenis are doing. In this case, they're simply asking for the Israelis to abide by the ceasefire they agreed to and allow the humanitarian aid in that they agreed to. We're now at the stage where Israel is saying to the world, watch, we're starving Palestinians to death. If we don't shoot them, we'll starve them to death. And you're not doing anything about it. And that is correct. Nobody's doing anything about it except the Yemenis. And it's all honor to them for that. But it's going to be tough. The United States is demonstrating, we're going to attack you. We're going to defend Israel's right to starve the Palestinians to death. And we're in it for the fight. Let's see how this works out.
Mr. Kavanaugh, your thoughts as well on Trump's accusation of Yemen being a threat to international navigation, despite the Yemeni armed forces saying only Israeli-bound ships are targeted, and for now only in the Bab el-Mandeb, I believe, and also reaffirming that international navigation in the Red Sea faces no threat at all.
Well, yes, the threat is to Israeli-bound ships. The threat is to commerce that's in support of the Israeli genocide in Gaza. That's the threat, and the threat to the world of the Israeli genocide in Gaza is the predicate of this. Is the important threat that the entire world should be preventing and doing anything it can to prevent. And what the Yemenis are doing are trying to stop the threat of genocide, and their threat is focused and targeted on ships that are going into Israel to support the genocidal Israeli state and its attack on Gaza. The Yemenis are in a correct position in terms of international law. They're not making a widespread attempt to prevent commerce from going through the Red Sea. They're making a focused attempt to prevent Israel, to do something to help stop Israel from committing a genocide in progress.
Mr. Kavanaugh, why has Trump opted for military action instead of peace, which he had said he seeks? Instead wanting Israel to break the siege, which is against international law, and also the ceasefire agreement. So if the regime had abided by the agreement, the Yemenis wouldn't be forced to think about restarting their operations.
Well, first of all, people really should realize Trump's rhetoric about peace is meaningless, okay? You think Trump means one thing, wait a day or two and he'll say something else. And the fact is that Donald Trump, as every American president, and at least as much, probably more than every American president, is absolutely committed to the Zionist project and is doing what he can to demonstrate that and to act with full military support of the Zionist project. And he's demonstrating that. And, his only complaint about Joe Biden or anybody in that respect is that they were too weak and he's going to be tougher. He's going to demonstrate that he's tougher than anybody, and he's the king of the hill and the big dog. And so that's what you can expect from Donald Trump. And this is the United States is committed absolutely and unconditionally to the Zionist project, including the genocide, if that's what the Israelis want, the genocide of the people in Gaza. So he's just stepping it up and demonstrating that he's the toughest of them all.
Kavanaugh, don't you think Trump's decision to attack Yemen would further embolden the Israeli regime to continue with this, to violate the ceasefire and continue with its crimes against Palestinians, the very people whose houses have been flattened and have no roof over their heads? They have no food, no water, no fuel, no electricity. So how far is too far?
I have no idea. Yes, that's exactly the effect of it. It's going to embolden the Israelis. They have been told again by the American president, we are on your side. We are a military arm of your project to expel or eliminate the Palestinians. And I don't know. I'm sorry. The Yemenis are the only ones who are challenging that militarily. This will not stop until the Israelis are defeated and driven out of Gaza in some kind of military action. It's not going to stop by ceasefires and peace agreements and talkie-talkie. It's going to stop when the Israelis run into a wall that forces them to leave. Otherwise, they're never going to. And they are telling the world, and they have been for 15 months, we're going to kill everybody in Gaza unless you take them out of here. And we'll do it with bombs, we'll do it with drones, we'll do it with snipers, and we'll starve them to death. And watch us. That's what we're doing. And the only country that's challenging them militarily about that is Yemen. And I'm afraid Yemen doesn't have enough power to stop them, but they have enough power to hurt them. And that's why the Americans are coming in on the side of Israel, and they're saying to Israel, you do your job, you do what you want to do in Gaza, we'll protect you over here in the Red Sea from Yemen. But somebody else has to join this fight, a military fight against Israel. Otherwise, Palestinians will be gone from Gaza. That's always been my position. I'm afraid I don't see anybody stopping that.
Mr. Kavanagh, I think we have Mr. Sterling with us as well. Mr. Rick Sterling, investigative journalist from Berkeley, US. Mr. Sterling, we're glad that you could make it. Mr. Sterling, obviously, your initial thoughts on the latest US-British attack on Yemen, when the Yemeni people they haven't even carried out an operation yet. Soon after the Gaza ceasefire was implemented. So all they're asking is lift the siege and there will be no operations at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. President Trump, in the pattern of bullying U.S. presidents, has vowed to punish Yemen, and he's making threats to bring hell upon them. And he talks about the freedom of navigation, and what he's really talking about here, the freedom of navigation is the freedom of Israel to commit genocide and the freedom of the United States to be complicit in genocide. Under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, it's obligatory on all states that have signed that convention to do all they can to stop and to punish genocide. President Trump is doing the exact opposite, following the pattern of attacks and bullying and threats that we've seen from presidents for the last, really since the Vietnam War. So for 50 years, this has been going on nonstop. And just as the Vietnamese people successfully resisted, that's probably going to be the case again. In one day, the United States has killed more people than people who died from the Yemeni blockade of the Red Sea. I believe 6 people total have died because they tried to go through and to resist and to without following the blockade. They tried to break the blockade. There were a total of 6 people have been killed in 18 months. Meanwhile, the U.S. killed 19 people just today alone. So this is indeed a war crime. And Israel's probably watching this, and Netanyahu is rubbing his hands with glee because for 30 years he's been trying to get the U.S. in a war with Iran, and President Trump is making threats against Iran as well as the attacks on Yemen.
Mr. Sterling, why is Trump looking for peace with the Ukraine war with Russia, but is totally different with Gaza and the Israeli entity?
Well, that gets into the geopolitics of the region of the world, really. And President Trump is correctly trying to end the war in Ukraine. He's correctly observed that that Russia was provoked into that conflict, and he's trying to bring about peace, or at least he says he is. And meanwhile, the U.S. Support for Israel continues nonstop. When it was admitted to the United Nations, Israel vowed to be a peace-loving country, and we've seen ever since that day in 1949, when they were admitted to the United Nations, they've been anything but peace-loving. And the genocide in Gaza is really the latest and the culmination of their warmongering.
That's right, Mr. Sterling. And Mr. Kavanagh, back to you again. Mr. Kavanagh, what could we expect in the coming days, especially with the Ansar Allah movement warning that Yemen will respond to Washington's unjustified escalation with escalation?
I can expect escalation. Trump believes, and I believe, that the Ansar Allah will respond. They are not backing down. They're committed to this. And so if there are Israeli-bound ships going through, they will attack them, and the United States will respond. This is a military fight that the United States, and as an American, let me just say this, we gotta understand, this is another undeclared war. The American Congress has not declared war on Yemen. The American people did not say, we are going to war on behalf of Israel with any country that prevents Israel from committing a genocide. This is another unconstitutional, undeclared war that the American people haven't asked for, but they're in it. And every American president, every American administration just assumes that they're going to go fight any kind of military attack they need to, any kind of military confrontation they need with Israel on behalf of Israel. So, this is what we're seeing. And I don't expect things to get better. I expect them to get worse in every level of this.
Mr. Sterling, your thoughts as well before we wrap this up. Your thoughts as well. What could we expect in the coming days? And one question: where does all this money come from?
Well, it comes from the U.S. budget, of course, the military, which is $1 trillion a year. And while President Trump is slashing hundreds of thousands of workers, eliminating jobs from them, the Defense Department and the military contractors are loving this. They love war. So it's the situation overall is that Yemen has tried to enforce the Geneva Convention that I was referring to earlier. They have simply said that that ships entering the Red Sea that are destined for Israel cannot go through there, and it's only the ships that try to violate that. So what Yemen has been doing is completely in accord with the Genocide Convention, which calls for the punishment of genocide, and what President Trump and what the U.S. is doing is in complete violation of it. Of course, they are complicit in the genocide by supplying a huge percentage of all the bombs that are being dropped on the poor, suffering people of Gaza. And we're just seeing this again, where truth is reversed, where white is black, and war is peace. So I'm hoping that the Yemeni people are able to resist this. They've proven to be tremendously resilient. Of course, Saudi Arabia had a campaign and had attacked Yemen for 8 years and was unable to defeat them. And I think the New York Times is probably right that that the U.S. is looking for is fearing a counterattack.
I would like to thank both of our guests, Mr. Rick Sterling, investigative journalist from Berkeley, U.S., and also Mr. Jim Kavanaugh, political analyst and blogger from New York, U.S. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.